ATC podcast,
also known as Against the Current, with your hosts, Mia
and Hannah. Wow, we're so nervous. Guys, you should see our setup right now. We're sitting on my floor.
Yeah, we only have one mic right now because freaking Jeff Bezos made my mic get delayed, and it literally is supposed to be here. We're filming this at 4:18.
We kept putting off starting because we were like, no, it's going to get delivered.
Yeah, I was just sitting in my house,
and
like at my door.
De Jesus, it was going to get delivered, but that didn't work.
No, it did not work. So it's probably going to get delivered like as we're recording.
But this is a very temporary setup. We're going to make it work.
It is working.
It is working with one mic. Honestly,
sitting on the floor.
Sitting on the floor. And I'm okay with that because this is a startup.
Yeah.
And what startup has ever
if you started perfect, then you wouldn't have had that growth.
The growth?
Exactly. You wouldn't have been able to
That's real.
Look back and be like, wow.
That's so
we have gotten so much
farther.
No,
I'm excited to see where the growth is from one mic to two, and hopefully eventually
one
chairs.
Mic to two. You're getting a little crazy with chairs. It's wild.
Chairs is crazy. Okay, so we're gonna start. Bear with us because this is so exciting, but it's also very nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
To start a podcast, but we wanted to talk about
millions and millions
of listeners, why we started it, go into kind of what our goal and purpose is, and then get to know each other a little bit better.
Exactly. So, let's do that.
Let's do it. ATC, Mia, how did this come?
ATC. Well, it was a warm night sitting on a pickleball court.
It all started because of a joke.
It all started because of a joke.
And of course it had to be Viet. Of all people, like, he's gonna, when this blows up, you know he's gonna take all the credit for it.
Put his name against the current with with Viet, with me and Hannah.
Founded by Viet.
Oh yeah, established by Viet. It's jokes. Yeah, no, because he was like, you know, it would be a great podcast name. Manna, and we're like, podcast is great, but the name
is way
so
crazy.
Then it just snowballed because we were like, podcast,
no, like, actually, like, let's do it.
Yeah, and it all happened very quickly. Then
sorry,
no, you're good. That entire night we were like, okay, names. We were just like thinking
all in.
Names. Yeah.
Yes.
We were like, what do we?
And then I said water, and then we went with water, and it kind of we chose the name Against the Current.
Yeah.
That night at pickleball. And
it just stuck.
We are going to have a Manna segment, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So good.
So Viet still gets his
joke
in here.
Gets his credit and his joke. But it all started because of that, because I was telling her, honestly, I feel like every time we hung out, it was like a podcast episode that you would listen to. Like, our conversations were always very... nothing surface. They were always very deep.
Very quickly.
Meaningful. Like, it got into it really quickly. And I think we have such good chemistry. The chemistry's there. And I was like, you know what? I feel like other people...
The world needs another podcast.
The world needs another
from
one.
us.
What are we going to do about it? And so here we are sitting on my floor with a mic.
We're answering the call.
So the podcast name is Against the Current.
Yes.
We chose that because we were trying to figure out what we want to do. And we both like the idea of, like, we want to talk about things lifestyle. Kind of imagining, like, you're sitting... chit-chatting with two of your friends.
Right.
Very chill, relaxed vibes, you know, something that you can play in the car on your way to work. It's not something that you really have to think about.
Yeah.
Or,
mentally prepare for. Yeah.
Or something like teaching you specific things. Really just hanging out with two friends. And personally, those are my kind of favorite podcasts and YouTube videos to watch.
Right.
So it made sense, and I feel like it goes with our vibe the best. But the reason we chose Against the Current is because while we just wanted to be relaxing lifestyle, talking about a multitude of different topics, both of us are very grounded in our faith, and we wanted that to still be a foundation for it, because while we're talking about lifestyle, we're in the world, we're not of it.
Right.
And we're going against that current of culture.
Yeah, and we've always talked about, too, like, your faith isn't just in that box, you know? It's not like, your relationship with Jesus and, like, then your life. It's like, once you have that relationship and the faith that we do have, it, like, just...
It trickles into everything.
To everything.
And because we didn't want it to be solely focused on faith and faith alone, because it doesn't reflect real life. Like, you're not spending 7 days a week in church doing those things, but you're actually out living life and enjoying other things. And so how does God come into all of that? How does God seep into every area of your life? And being able to talk about other things, just knowing that God is at the foundation of all of it. So we're going to be talking about a multitude topics. But that was kind of where Against the Current came from, and why we wanted to start the podcast.
The origin.
Some of the topics that we're going to talk about are just areas for us of interest, passions, or hobbies that we have.
Yeah.
So I know Mia has like her list of stuff that she's going to be talking about, and then I have mine.
Right. Yeah. So I think even when we were just, again, talking about the idea of the podcast, we were like, okay, let's make a list of, again, what our interests are. So then everyone has an idea. So when we're uploading these more often, you'll have kind of an idea of who we are, what we like, what our interests, consist of. So obviously the first one, I think for both of us, was the faith, which we kind of talked about, which was that like the starting point of everything. I already talked about the pickleball courts.
We love pickleball.
It's
taken over our lives.
It really has.
You know what I realized? Because Easter's coming up, and I was thinking about how last year I made Vlad an Easter basket, and I put pickleball paddles.
That was like the beginning.
Wooden pickleball paddles in our Easter basket. That was when it started.
The beginning of it all.
So we're coming up to almost a year of us having started the sport. Not a year of like playing consistently like we have been now.
Right. That was like
I
September.
think started like in summer. Yeah, maybe even later. Late summer.
Yeah.
But it's almost come up to a year playing pickleball.
Yeah, that's crazy. Literally started with those paddles, and now for the people that don't know, we pickle 3 times? 2 to 3 times a week?
2 to 3 times a week for a couple hours. We're avid ballers.
We're avid ballers. It doesn't look like it, though.
No,
it doesn't
like
show.
Like, we're absolutely
oh my
awful.
gosh.
Don't let that mistake you. We cannot play well.
But
we have a good time.
But, that's where the podcast ideas come up. That's
so true.
It's a place not only for pickleballing, but
it's
community. We're already on the same page. Community. So yeah, so my 2 first things I wrote down were faith and pickleball.
Those are the best things.
That's crazy.
Faith and pickleball. That's like for both of us. Faith and pickleball are 2.
Yeah, honestly. No, and then this order is crazy. Because then next I was like, okay, back to faith ministry. Because it also could be through pickleball, if you really think about it.
That's so true. Pickleball has pickleball. We have people, strangers from the pickleball courts that are now coming to church. Talk about God seeping into every area of
oh my
life.
Gosh, it's literally evident in
while we listen
everything.
To Come
and go with me too. Oh, exactly. It's little seeds planted.
100%.
The touchdown. Whatever that song is.
Yes.
Big house.
It's the same song I was just singing.
Was it?
Yeah.
All I remember is the touchdown. That's funny. But I love when people comment on those songs
no,
too.
real. But ministry is so important, and that is something like Mia is so good at. Is ministering, and I feel like has a calling for, even if it's not full time. Right. You have that gift for sure.
Oh, you're too kind. But yeah, so that's definitely a big part of my life, whether it's a small group, just volunteering at church, whatever the case may be. It's something I very, very much enjoy. What else there? The next one I actually hated wanting to say, because it's an interest of mine. I love like fashion and stuff.
Yes.
But I always hated saying that, because then I'm like, okay, well then.
Because then there's expectations.
Exactly. Like, okay, well you have to have good outfits if you're into that. Like, no.
You just like it.
I just like it.
Well, that's like we're into pickleball doesn't mean I'm a pro.
Exactly.
Although, I actually have always thought that you're very fashionable, and I didn't know that was an area of interest for you. Right. But like when we went to Barcelona, I was like, gosh, Mia's outfits are always so cute. Or like you put stuff together that I would have never thought. I just don't have that fashion forward mind.
Oh, stop.
So like every time, like you're the type of person where you could put like outfits together that are totally unconventional, but you make them look good. Like you have that fashionista vibe.
Literally, you're too kind. I'm gonna just cry on this podcast. No, but I genuinely like putting outfits together, and I think it's fun, and I like it, even if they're not always winners, but it's again something I'm interested in. Exactly. What I need to do is combine the pickleball fashion. I really need to combine all of these. Have like a ministry about pickleball fashion.
Pickleball clothing with verses on
because
that are fashionable.
Wow. I think I just found my calling right now.
Through not the podcast.
Not the podcast. The podcast has just really led to my calling of needing a Christian themed pickleball clothing line.
I'll support it.
Hannah's my only buyer. That's funny. Or maybe that'll be our merchandise for again this podcast.
That would be crazy.
That's funny. All right, what else? Oh, and then I'm going into I love hockey. That's actually a big thing. Big hockey. It's always started with hockey, but I've tried to branch out into other sports. That's been like the goal this year. Yes. So watching a little more.
Your first love.
Hockey is my first love,
and it always will be.
Because when I lived in Massachusetts for 2 years. 2 years, and then that was the only thing that I had to do was to go to like high school hockey games.
I love that.
And it was a blast. And then I come back to Florida and I'm like, Tampa Bay Lightning, back-to-back Stanley Cups.
We're so good.
I
don't even know anything about hockey that much, but I've been to some Lightning games. They're just I can understand what's going on when I watch it. I just don't watch it like actively. But it's a fun thing to watch. Yeah. I grew up in a football family, so that's one of the interests that I wrote down. Is I'm specifically NFL. My parents didn't go to like a big state school, right? So they don't have like those kind of tethers to a school where it's like, you know, you were Alabama or die or FSU or die. Yeah. My brother basically goes to FSU now, so we're kind of starting to get into a college football family. But I didn't grow up with it, and I don't really care. Right. And I didn't grow up going to a big state school. But NFL-wise, I grew up watching the Dallas Cowboys. That is my heart. As hard as it is. As hard as it may be. To be a Dallas fan right now. Oh my gosh. It is still, it always has been my love, and I absolutely love football. That's really the only sport, besides CrossFit, which I'm getting into mine, but that I watch avidly.
Right, yeah. So, and then that's kind of how I feel, though. Like, your ideas towards hockey are how I feel towards other sports, where I can follow it, and I'm, like, interested, and I think it's a fun environment, especially live games. Live sporting events are nothing like it. But I've just never had that connection. So I definitely wrote down, like, I've been trying to get in, like, basketball, football, all those guys, but hockey's
your number one.
It's my number one. And then last two, pop culture. I try to keep up because I find it so entertaining. As good or unhealthy as it may be.
To be that one to keep me updated.
It's mostly TikTok, honestly. I'll just have like a whole TikTok stream and I'll be like, oh my gosh, this celebrity did this celebrity.
I have some pop culture stuff on my TikTok.
Right. Like I low-key pride myself on it. Like I'm like, I try to stay so updated. What does it actually benefit me? I don't know. But you know, it sounds entertainment. And then I sound super, people are like, oh my gosh, she's so cool. She knows all of this pop culture stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
Did you watch the Oscars?
No. No, I didn't. But guess what? I looked up those articles afterwards.
That's real.
That's where, you know, it's just kind of being efficient with it. I'm an efficient pop culture follower.
I love
like,
that
what's the quickest way I can get the most information?
To know to stay away from it. Wow. You know?
So true.
That's so true. You have to know your enemy.
Wow. You're so right.
That is so true.
Know what's going on. Can't be ignorant to it. Exactly. Yeah, and then last thing, boring. It's just like family. That's a big part.
So boring.
It's so boring, but no, like genuinely, that's just like a big part. I come from a big family, so that's just always been a very
I love that
big aspects, which also kind of trickles into a lot.
It does.
Not as much as faith, but again, it's a big thing for.
Yeah. So we're going over these things because these topics that we're talking about now of our interest are more than likely going to end up being what our episodes are going to be centered around, or like there could be certain episodes that are centered around certain topics that either just we really enjoy. Preface, yeah. Of what you could expect from us. So for me, I'd already kind of, you know, faith in pickleball for sure, and then I kind of hinted like I'm definitely, you're going to hear me talk about CrossFit. It is a huge part of my life.
Just a little
just
thing.
A little part. Yeah. I only talk about it like every day, every hour. And not only is it a sport that I enjoy watching competitively, I also compete myself, and that is what I do for my health and fitness regimen, if you will. But anything health, fitness, nutrition, all of those are subjects that I'm very passionate about.
Right.
I don't have any kind of like coaching license or certification, but I honestly want to. It's definitely in my future of, even if I don't use them as a job, just for the knowledge,
that'd be awesome,
knowledge sake,
right?
Because it's something I'm so passionate about, to become either like a PT, or in CrossFit you can get what's called your level 1 coaching certification, or even getting some kind of basic nutritionist. I don't know how that works, but I really want to look into that, because those are things that I've done a lot of my own research on, things that I'm really passionate about. Getting people, and it doesn't have to be CrossFit. That's my, what you would call, drug of choice, but it doesn't have to be everybody's. Whatever you enjoy and whatever gets people up and moving, I think is so vital and important.
Right.
And I do think that it's cool to see faith tie into that, because our bodies are temples. We're called to take care of those things. And you know, I think it's a disrespect to God and his creation to not take care of those things.
Right.
And so I love to, and honoring our bodies with the food that we put in it. And how we eat. So those are topics that I'm really passionate about. I also love anything beauty and skincare. I love makeup. I don't do it as
at makeup. Oh my goodness. I love.
I don't do it as creatively as I used to when I had more time in college, but I would say for someone who is self-taught, I am
not too shabby.
I'm not too shabby at makeup, and I absolutely love beauty. Like, those are the kind of YouTube videos that I watch is beauty. Those are mostly, like, if I'm up to date with anything pop culture, it's with the celebrities that are tied into beauty, like Kim and Kylie. Like, I get updates on, like, their brands and stuff like that. Or whatever celebrity could be influenced, because the beauty community, I mean, that's where the money's at, is in makeup. Makeup is such a lucrative...
Isn't that, like, literally what Rihanna did? She just, like, did for music and then did makeup?
Selena Gomez, very similar. Yeah. And granted, she just came out with a song, but Rare Beauty popped off. Fenty Beauty popped off. Yeah. Definitely that is where it's at. But even Millie Bobby Brown came out with Florence.
So true. Like, Ariana Grande.
So Ariana Grande has her own. It's insane.
It's a thing.
So I absolutely love anything beauty, skincare. And then I also wrote down books. I love to read. I am not as much of an avid reader as some of my friends are, but I did read, I believe, over 20 books last year.
Compared to the average person, compared to someone like me, that's pretty...
These books that I'm reading are some thick boys. Yeah. So I love books, so I could talk about that for a while, whatever your favorite book series are, giving recommendations or reviews on the books.
Leave in the comments down below.
Now, I'm currently reading The Spanish Love Deception. Wow. Cute little romance.
Spanish
I'm not. I just finished, or I just started it, so I'm not too far in, but it seems good so far. And then I put marriage just because, not something I'm like passionate about marriage, but it is an area that
it's a big part
can
of your
talk
life.
About because I am married. So talking about what it is to be young and married, Christian and married. And how our faith is a huge part of that in relationships in general. So
facts.
Those are kind of what our big topics are of that you might hear coming up in the future, or what certain episodes might be centered around. Right. And then we're now going to talk about our high and low tide segment.
Oh, I was so excited. See, guys, how it fits the theme against the current water, high, low tide.
The logo is a wave. Also, big shout out to my best friend Madison Anderson. Well, not soon to be Anderson because she's getting married soon. Whoop whoop. But she recently took a college course in graphic design because she's getting her master's like the queen that she is. And when I told her that we were doing this, she was so supportive and excited for us. And she took her own time. I had showed her the logos that I designed, and she was like, "Let me see if I can make it better."
Actually, those are all disgusting.
And then I saw what she sent me, and I was like, "Yeah, we're definitely going to be using that. Thank you. It looks way more professional than anything I could have done."
I was making like mock-ups of like Instagram, bro, like the Instagram story thing.
It was like the paint, like the drawing.
I was trying to write words. Yeah,
it's so funny. So shout out to Maddie for our beautiful logo that we have.
Yes.
But yes, the whole like we try to keep things in the water theme
realm.
So every episode we want to start off, normally we would start off with our high and our low tide
of the week.
So like the high point of our week and the low point of our week.
Right.
So let's do that.
Let's do it.
What is your
oh my gosh.
Do high or low tide first?
I don't know. It depends. It's like one of those things, like good news, bad news. Like, do you want
to start off with the bad and end on the good?
Right. That makes sense.
But I think we should start with our low tides.
I agree.
What is your low tide?
And low tide. I feel like I should definitely have thought of this.
It could be that mic not coming in.
Bro, actually, that really made me angry.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. I woke up this morning, I was like, podcast day! Looked at my phone, mic was not ready. But actually, I had hope a little bit, because it was like 2:15 and like 6:15. I was like, okay.
That's not bad.
That's promising, you know, if they put a little pep in their step, you know, a little more pedal to the metal.
Maybe push the speed limit a
exactly.
little bit.
There's a chance. Waited. Look where we are now. One mic. One.
Making it work.
Yeah, so that is actually my low tide.
That's not a bad low tide to have.
No, honestly.
If that's the worst thing that you can think of for your week.
You're right.
That's not bad.
You're so right. Yeah, I mean, it is. High tide. I'm so privileged that my low tide is not getting a mic. Wow, that's so true. Yeah, I mean, it's spring break. So I feel like any low tide isn't that low.
Can't be
you know, as long if you have a low, not at school or work, can't be that low. Exactly.
That's real.
So that's my thought process. So that's my low tide. But
I feel like my low tide is, so I've been dealing with a back injury for a couple months now. And it's actually gotten a lot better through amazing people that I have around me. The people that I go to for cupping and scraping, Primal Performance. Not that they would ever listen to this podcast, but shout out to them because they have saved me. And then the other person who has saved my life is one of my good friends, Melissa, Dr. Melissa Capurro. She is a rehab specialist, physical therapist, all of the amazing things, and she's been helping me throughout this injury. But this week, like, it was doing really good, and then this week, the right side of my back has just been pulling and bothering me a lot. Not, again, it's so much better than from where it was.
Right.
But if I had to think of a low, like, that would be my low tide.
Yeah.
So not terrible.
You're not thrilled about it.
Not thrilled, yeah. It's not a good thing.
Yeah,
but
that's true.
It is in the process of getting better.
Right.
But definitely, you know, dealing with pain on a daily basis isn't fun.
Yeah.
But anyway, Maya, what is your high tide?
Let's just moving right along. You know, it sounds really lame, but like this is pretty high.
This is high.
First podcast.
I think this is my high tide.
I'm not gonna lie, that's pretty dope.
It's really cool because I was talking to her when we were planning all of this, and we were like, you know, this feels like when you're a little kid and you come up with like a business idea and like you write out your business plan, like your lemonade stand or whatever. Like, I did that as a kid. Like I made up businesses. Yeah. Right? And it's like, this is what it feels like, except I can't count how many times I told me, I was like, no, Mia, you don't understand how serious I am about this.
Like actually.
Like, this is going to happen.
Yeah, because there's so many times, like in general, like life, you're like, oh, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
And it never happens. Literally, we could have gone home that day and forgot everything about it.
Right. And like never followed through with it. But I was like, no, like, I'm going to buy this podcast equipment. Yeah. We're going to set up a time. Like, let's put it in the calendar. I think I learned this from my therapist that you are like, I think it was 8 times more likely to do something if you put it in your calendar. So put things in your calendar, folks. Even if it's something really small like eating breakfast, you are 8 times more likely to do it if you write it down and put it in your calendar.
I believe that. It's like keeping you accountable.
We did.
Like, so in your calendar, you got to.
Yeah, we put like Thursday was going to be our podcast day.
It's so true.
And we needed to have things lined up to do that beforehand.
Facts.
And also, shout out to us because we are not technology girlies, but we're figuring it out.
1000%.
And we're doing it.
Yeah.
We are doing it.
And that's all that matters, that these people get to hear the voice.
This is really exciting. Concept. I'm
so exciting. Such a high tide.
It is. Such an excuse to see you.
Honestly.
Often. You know, just catch up. We see each other at pickleball or at church.
Right.
But not too much. There goes my dog starting to bark. All right, puppy has stopped barking. Thank goodness. So we were just finishing our high and low tide segment.
Yes.
And then
it's very podcast based this week for obvious reasons, our highs and lows. But
I'm just really excited that we're following through. And we were talking about it being such a good excuse to see you because we don't hang out just outside of like church or pickleball.
And even there, you don't really like. It's very much like small talk. Yes. Very like.
It's not genuine
talking.
What's the word I'm thinking? Quality time.
Exactly. I would agree.
For sure, quality time.
And having those conversations.
Yeah, so I love that we get to do this because every time that we do, it's not for the podcast, but when we get together, the conversations are just immaculate.
Right. I would agree. And then it's just so fun. Yeah, because even if literally no one listens to this ever, we're just planning to talk. And sign me up. I love yapping.
So excited. I literally could
I love yapping.
And it's funny though because so I am an introvert, but I do love like genuine deep conversations,
especially if it's one-on-one.
One-on-one, deep, genuine conversations, meaningful conversations are my bread and butter. And I come out of my shell if I'm around people that I'm really comfortable with. Again, let alone one-on-one conversations with someone that I am comfortable with. Right. I just think it's going to be so good. Right. And like the idea of just sitting in our own little environment. Yeah. Talking about things that we love, we're passionate about. Yeah. With a close friend. What a blessing.
It's so fun.
And we literally were talking about, even if nobody listens to this podcast, I'm gonna listen to it.
We were joking during the test. I was cracking up at our test. I was like, we are freaking hilarious.
We're so funny.
I'm gonna listen to this every day.
We're so self-involved.
It's bad, yeah. I'm literally gonna be against the current number one fan. Number one fan. Speaking of number one fan, you still have not followed our Instagram back, Anna.
Speaking of, follow us on Instagram.
What is it? It's like Against Current Pod.
Yeah, so let's. Our Instagram name is Against Current Pod. Yes. Friends, there is already another podcast.
Oh, actually, shout out to them. They're probably great.
Shout out to them. There's already another podcast called Against the Current, and I looked it up though. There are no rules that prevent podcasts from having the same name. Because we tried to think of other names, but this one was sticking. And I just love Against the Current so much. So the Instagram name was already taken. So we played around with some different names and we came to the conclusion to have Against Current Pod. Not the best.
It's not the worst.
But it's going to be known.
Against Current Pod.
Follow us on Instagram at Against Current Pod.
Yeah, look for the logo.
Look for the logo, the white circle with the cute little aqua waves.
Aqua wave.
I also need to follow my own Instagram account.
Hannah will follow soon, hopefully.
I will, and hopefully we'll post today a little picture.
Ooh, that'd be fun. Of the setup,
filming.
they get a little behind the scenes. Look,
BTS moment.
BTS moment.
Of us recording our first episode. I don't know when we're gonna upload it. Oh, you know what? We should talk about that. Sorry, this is all so random, but that's what we're here for on this first one. This is all trial and error, you guys. We're going to get better as we go.
Yeah.
But our plan is to upload on Mondays because we wanted it to be the podcast that you start your week with. So we want to upload on Mondays. So hopefully by Monday, I could figure this out on how to actually upload. We have some time.
We got time.
And get it uploaded so everybody can listen to it. Hopefully our goal is to have it uploaded.
Mark your calendars. Put it on the calendar. Exactly. March
Monday,
18th.
March 18th for the first drop. Watch it not be dropped when we're saying it in the podcast.
Oh, that's awkward. So that's actually really embarrassing.
In the future, it's like
we'll just add a giant
We're
adding a giant bleep sound effect over all of this. Yeah, no. Exactly.
But that's the goal. And if we're making it the goal, I'll get it done.
It's on the calendar.
It's on the calendar
8 times more likely to do it, so
the goal is because we want this to be your favorite podcast to start your week with.
Right.
And
make Mondays a little better.
Make Mondays a little better. As of right now, we're trying to do twice a month uploads for now. We want to increase it to where we eventually get weekly. But again, this is trial and error, very new to this. Right. Not technology girlies. Also, I feel like a lot of people that start podcasts were already influencers on social media or were doing something else.
Yeah.
They had a following and they probably have the money and people.
Me saying that's gonna make the Monday better. That's the most conceited thing I've ever said in my entire life. We're making your Mondays better.
We are making your Monday better. I mean, you're gonna make my Monday better.
Exactly. If anyone's making their Mondays better, it's me and Hannah listening to ourselves.
If we only have 2 listeners and it's Mia and Hannah, I'm okay with that, but I already know we're gonna have more listeners than that.
Yeah.
Because all of my friends that I've told, they're like,
they're tuning in.
Unless they're liars.
It was in the moment. They're like, I can't tell her no.
I haven't told my mom about this yet.
Oh my gosh, reveal. Call her up right now.
I'm gonna call Trudy and let her know.
Do it.
So the other segment, so the idea of our podcast when you are tuning in on a normal episode, hopefully episode 2 will give a better look of the usual routine. Yeah. So we want to start off always with our high and low tide segment. And then we want to get into our manna of the day. So we are using manna in some capacity.
Yeah, because it was too good not to use. Because if you don't know, the manna from heaven, the whole...
Your daily bread.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we should give a little bit of background on that whole Bible story.
We should.
So people do know. So... in Scripture, when the Israelites were wandering in the desert, God, who had already proven himself...
over and over again, man.
Over and over, man. The Israelites...
his patience goes crazy. I would never...
It's always the irony of that.
They're all starving and dying if I'm God. I'm not kidding.
When you're reading that, you're like, oh my goodness, how could they have lost faith again? But that is
1,000%
our daily walk with God.
1,000%.
It's just not out for everyone to read and make fun of.
It's true.
So, but they're wandering in the desert. They're finding anything and everything to complain about.
Which also same. I'm saying I would not have patience for them, but I'm doing the same things, like you were saying.
I would not be chill, after you leave your home. It wasn't a good home, but they left the only thing they know.
Yeah.
In the middle of the desert. Hungry. They've definitely seen loved ones die around them. Yeah. You know, a lot of trauma.
Yeah, because and there's... obviously they have the promises, but it's still unknown, the next steps. You're very much having to rely on God in that moment.
100%.
And that's crazy for them.
And so they're walking through and they're complaining to Moses saying that, we're hungry. We have nothing to eat. And so...
a little hangry. As one does. I am, president of Hangry Club. I'm not gonna lie.
No, you have no idea.
I'm not gonna lie. Like, it's a thing. Like, if I don't get my food, like,
I'm a different human.
Yeah. So we have to make sure we're both like fed up before this podcast, or we're
gonna be fed up if we're not fed up.
Wow, fed up if we're not the fed up segment where we literally are just
complaining.
Just complaining.
Right after the manna segment.
That's wild. We just turn into the people that actually ate the manna.
So yes, basically God's way of providing is he was going to give them daily fresh manna, which is a type of bread, and it was falling manna from heaven, genuinely. Every morning they would wake up and there would be fresh manna, and basically God's instructions were to collect and eat your manna, but it spoiled every night. Yeah. So you could not store it up and think, oh, well, this is going to last me for the week, because God's whole purpose was, no, you're going to trust me every single day that I'm going to provide your daily manna for you.
Right.
Which is such a beautiful illustration of faith
and
trust. And so we wanted to have a manna segment. Like, this is your daily manna. Or I guess it's really kind of their weekly manna.
That is true.
But, you know,
it's just the concept behind it is...
Yes. You know, here's some daily word for you.
Exactly. What the Lord has kind of just revealed to us, or what we've exactly. What our devotional time
whether it's something from our personal devotional time that stood out to us, something that we heard in a sermon that stood out, something that we feel like God has spoken to us, or if there's just a scripture that we want to kind of dive into and talk about.
Because even though this is weekly, we're still Christ followers every day. We're still, you know, having to do that reliance just like those people, you know, like relying on God every day for even little things. So,
and maybe something that we talk about, or the verse that we talk about, could be what people decide to focus on for their week, for your daily manna every other day.
I think it's so fruitful to just dwell on something. Like, I think so many people, which isn't a bad thing, but like I've even seen like, or just Christian influencers, whatever, they'll be like, okay, I literally followed someone that was like, I'm reading the whole Bible in a month. It was like January. That's insane. That's a lot. And you know, that might be good for them and whatever, but I just feel like you'll miss things. Like, there's just like, I could read the same verse over and over and over again, and I'll get something new every time. 100%. Like, I think it's just like that chewing the cud illustration, where it's literally just like, keep dwelling on it, keep digging into it, keep researching things. Yeah.
And I think as we grow, as we mature, different seasons that we go through life, different verses speak to us in different ways as we go through them. Now, not every verse has multiple meanings or applications, and other ones are definitely up for interpretation, but how something can apply to you, or how loudly something calls out at you, can completely change. Like, there are verses where, you know, I might have read it in high school and I didn't really think much of it, and I go back to that verse now and I'm like, oh my goodness, like how
the weight
deep.
of it is so different.
So much more. So we, you know, you never know. So I do love that, the idea of dwelling on something.
Yeah.
A particular verse, or a particular
just word in general.
Yes. Yeah. Something that you're trying to focus on or grow on in your spiritual growth, because we all have growth to do. And
of course,
talking about that within our first manna segment, we wanted to talk about the verse that we've chosen for the podcast verse, which Mia, you have it pulled up.
I do have it pulled up. I was trying to be prepared. So it's John 7:38. And this is Jesus speaking, and it says, "Whoever believes in me, as scripture said, rivers of living water will flow from within them."
What a good verse.
It's actually amazing.
Again, keeping with the water.
Jesus, his, like...
Water is talked about so much.
Bar after bar, man.
Jesus was spitting bars.
Constantly. Love that. But yeah, sticking with the water theme, and living water. Like...
That is what we want.
Exactly.
Constantly.
Yeah, and I think water in general was used so many times in the Bible.
So many.
Like we were even talking about that concept of living water. A thought that came to my mind with like the woman at the well. He was like, you're gonna thirst again.
Yep.
Like, even with the manna, you're gonna get hungry again.
Yep.
But God is who you're relying on, not the food. Jesus is the well that will never thirst. Run dry, exactly. So that's the same concept, is like, I want to rely so much on the living water, not the dead water. Going against the current. The world is that dead. And you're going to thirst. There's nothing that's going to fully satisfy from this world.
And you can even think of it like dead water as being very still water, versus Jesus.
Like, that's stagnant,
and the living water is not stagnant. You are constantly moving and growing and thriving when you have that living water. And specifically because it says, whoever believes in me, as scripture has said. So when we believe in God and we do as scripture has taught us to do, we will have that living water, and it says flowing from within them. And I think that goes to show of like, it also flows outwardly. You know, and not only does it flow within you, but it flows outward on how you treat people, how
1,000%.
you talk to people. And a beautiful way to talk about how God influences every part of your life. Because when you have that living water, when you truly know who Jesus is and you live for him, it's going to affect every area of your life.
Exactly. Yeah. It's crazy too, because literally I was reading in Mark this morning, and I wasn't even thinking about, to be honest, what we were talking about today or anything, but it was just Jesus talking about how, I think it was like the Pharisees, you know, they were like, oh, how are you not washing your hands before you eat? Like, it's very much that ritual stuff. And Jesus was like, it's not what's going in you that's going to defile you. It's what's already in you that defiles you. It's the heart, it's the anger, it's the malice, it's the envy, it's all exactly. So it's
Jesus pays attention to.
Exactly, and that's what this verse is talking about, from within them. So 100%. You can even like have the looks of living water. It can look like you're doing all this stuff all the time, exactly, but it's genuinely stale. What's your heart posture? That's what the Lord's looking at.
100%. Yeah, God is not fooled by facades. You cannot pretend to be this roaring living water when in reality you are dead, stale, stagnant water that is so not true. Connected to God upwardly and connected to the Holy Spirit and how we are supposed to live our lives on a daily basis. And it doesn't mean that you're perfect or that we get it right or we don't have seasons in life where you're like, man, like, do I have that living water flowing through me, flowing throughout me and towards other people in my life? But it's a matter of, like you said, your heart posture. Do you want it, and are you working on getting better? Yeah. Are you trying every day to...
And are you doing it out of your own strength? Because that, again, because I've even found, like, I'll get upset at myself if I'm not in the Word or something, and I'm definitely relying on, like, my like, how... Exactly, my routines. Well, I'm doing for God instead of genuinely, like, there's nothing I can do for God. Like,
and sometimes we need to not do... You know, like, there's power in rest. Yeah. And sitting in the Spirit of God. And sitting, like, dwelling on something.
Like, almost...
Instead of constantly looking for the next thing or the next way that we can serve, which those are beautiful and awesome things. But I feel like some people keep themselves busy because they don't want the quiet.
And I think it limits God to what you're doing. Like, you're limiting God to only working through your plans, through what you choose to read that day. It's like, if you kind of leave more just open... more stuff can be filled. It's like, if you already have a glass that's full, you're not going to be able to fill it with anything. But if you kind of leave room and just let your plans not necessarily be so scheduled.
We need to be able to flow. Wow. We need to be flexible.
It's true, which is really hard, though. Like, I'm a very routine, scheduled person. Yeah. So, like, again, I've fallen into the habit, like, oh, I want to read my Bible at this time, you know, and follow this devotional, follow, like, these Bible plans.
And the way that a good example of how that can limit you, and I am guilty of this, where I like to wake up in the morning and do my devotions, but I'm not going to lie, especially the week before spring break, I was so tired. I wasn't getting up and doing my devotions in the morning. So then I'm like, oh, well, I missed my morning Devo time, so now I'm not doing it at all. Yeah. Why can't I be more flexible to even do it during my break at school? Yeah, Why can't I be flexible enough to do it before bed? It doesn't need to be first thing in the morning. It's true, yeah. And I'm limiting God and myself from hearing his word because I missed my alarm and didn't get up in the morning. Yeah. That's going to happen. Yeah. So if we let our routines throw off, like if our routine gets thrown off, which it will... prevent us from diving into the word, listening to what God has to say, or doing ministry, whatever you're feeling led to do, you're going to limit yourself.
It's true.
And God is bigger than our routines.
1,000%. Yeah. I mean, I think definitely having some sort of plan in general, like,
can help you be consistent.
Exactly. I would agree with that.
Don't let it lock you in.
Exactly. Don't let it
refuse to be malleable at all. Exactly. There's a balance.
Yeah, and I think also, like, not even to bring back what we've been talking about to be repetitive, but if God is, like, the center of your life, it's almost like it shouldn't matter, like, oh, I'm just going to give God an hour. Right. But it's like God should genuinely be, like, obviously reading your word, praying and stuff is how you can grow closer to him. It's creating that intimate relationship, but that flows into everything. That living water, like, it genuinely isn't going to just stay in that 1 hour. Like, and how does that...
And I've taught my students this. For anybody who doesn't know me, I teach second grade. And something that we talk about and teach is that prayer doesn't need to be this scheduled big thing when you're down on your face, hands and knees, having the conversation for God. I think there's a time and place for that. And I think it's necessary. But I think the basis of what we're trying to say is don't let perfect be the enemy of good. You know, it doesn't need to be perfect. If your time for prayer is when you're in the car driving and you're just having an out loud conversation with God,
that's awesome.
Then that's awesome. You're still communicating with him. Is there a time and place where it should be intimate,
a sacred,
one-on-one, sacred time? Absolutely. But if life happens and you don't get to do that, then don't not pray at all.
Exactly.
There needs to be a balance between both.
Yeah, I agree. And I think just the church in general falls in a habit of that.
100%.
But because it's hard to, our flesh wants to stick to the routine. It wants to, because our whole lives, like the world promotes routine. You go to work, you go to the gym, you eat dinner.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's like, why should your relationship with God be any different? Like that's what's kind of preached at you, but it's so much greater than that.
Which is why we wanted to do this podcast, to show like, hey, I do have other things going on in my life that isn't church and ministry all the time, but hey, God still works through those things, or I'm still going to show God on the pickleball court when I go to the gym,
which can be hard sometimes. You get it out that fourth time in a row. You
some curse words might be flying.
You wanna,
and that's something that I am working on, guys. Is controlling the tongue, which is that could be a whole podcast episode because that's tough. There's a reason why God said
Jesus talks about that a lot too.
Why that's one of the hardest things to do is to be able to control the tongue.
The root of all evil, or he was saying some crazy
statements.
He
was saying some crazy things, like, but the whole point being is that living water flows into every area of your life. So no, this podcast isn't going to be Bible, church, and Jesus 100% of the time, but it's showing that
God, a big thing.
God is always working 100% of the time, even when you're not doing things that are billboard ministry in your face at church. Exactly. Which is an awesome, beautiful thing, because Christians, and I don't think the church talks about it enough, need to know how to live and navigate your life when you're not in the church.
Yeah.
You know, Christianity is not something you don't flip the switch on when you walk into church and then it flips back off when you leave.
Right.
It's something that takes with you. How can you show Christ through fashion? How can you show Christ through, like, with beauty that leads into self-esteem, which is huge right now.
Yeah.
With social media, with how our posture, with how we look at pop culture.
Yeah.
Everything. It affects everything.
Even like fitness, like you were saying, 100%. Like you're gonna have that more motivation, realizing like, oh, it's God who created you. He gave you the body that's able to move and to gain health, you know. So it genuinely is.
It flows
a really
from
big
everything.
Thing. Yeah.
And
which is a gift, honestly.
It is. It's beautiful.
Like the fact that God doesn't just want us in like to be perfect all the time, like that always blows my mind, you know.
Yeah.
Because even growing up in a church, we're almost like inclined to just have that idea, like, oh, God like prefers when we're perfect. Well, obviously, you know, he wants us to strive to be like him in any way possible, but it's just
he knows that we're gonna fall short, though.
Exactly. And he's there.
Jesus is
he's already there when we're at our lowest, when we aren't putting on the show, when we aren't, you know, putting on the Christian face. Like that's when almost he moves. Like in my life, like I've seen him almost felt closer then.
Yes.
Because it genuinely is just such a good representation of his love. Because it's easy to love someone, like we're humans. It's easy to love someone that's perfect. It's easy to love someone that has the face on.
Yeah.
And it just shows that how much greater God's love is.
100%.
That it's not like our fleshly affection.
Yeah, and it even goes into, you know, just connecting what you said to something else with how we feel about ourselves, and when we do fall short, not letting that shame prevent us. And I was victim to that for so long. When I'm just gonna get deep for a second, but for a while in my life, and it's still something that I go through, is an eating disorder, and I'm out of the thickest part of it. But to say I'm fully recovered, I don't think that that's true. I'm very much still in the recovery process. But when I was at my lowest moment with that, I was avoiding God because I was so ashamed and so guilty, because I grew up my entire life with this image put on me of like, oh, well, Hannah's the really Christian one. Hannah is such a woman of God. Hannah has such great faith. Hannah is such a good kid. She never had a rebellious phase, and I didn't. But I definitely put, quote unquote, my relationship with God on hold because I was so ashamed of myself for struggling that I let that prevent me, which is exactly what Satan wants, to prevent me from
hide it,
bringing this to the Father, keeping it in the dark, not bringing it to light and being like, God, I am struggling, and having God help me through that. I wanted to keep it and try to do it myself, because I was like, no, I've been called such a great Christian my entire life.
Like, I can handle it,
Yeah, a good Christian wouldn't struggle with this, so I can't bring this to God, which is so silly, because he already knows.
Right.
And, you know, it doesn't work like that, but I've been in a pursuit of changing my mindset towards that and knowing that God is not disappointed in me.
Yeah.
That is a hard thing to come to terms with, and it can be very emotional because I felt like a little girl that disappointed her dad. And I'm like, but God is not disappointed. Every day his mercies are new. Every day we receive new manna.
Yeah. And
he just wants you to, like, God's already let my sin go. Why can't I?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, it's so hard, but hopefully, you know, talking about these things
I think
can help someone else.
There's so much power in vulnerability.
There's so much. That's where connection happens.
Yeah, I remember even in Barcelona, a little throwback to when we got close. We didn't even plan to really talk about it.
Oh my gosh, we should talk about
I was thinking, but I was just thinking, because even like late nights when you're there, it's when you kind of just realize, oh, we have common struggles. Like, oh, I'm not the only person that's insecure about this. I'm not. And then it just creates like that kind of bond, you know? Like, you're not. No, actually, like, honestly. But it's really just like realizing, like, oh, you're not doing this alone. Like, there's someone you can talk to. You're not, like, obviously the Lord's your main source, but it's just the fact that we have a gift to also commune with others, that 100%. We have a gift to also trauma bond with others, you know? Yeah, so let's talk about Barcelona.
Hold on, what a good manna segment. That was a really good manna segment for the first one.
What to look forward to, guys.
Oh my goodness. So, yes, talking about Barcelona, we should probably, because me and Mia are doing this podcast, talk about how our friendship started. In the last, like, 15 minutes or so that we have.
Yeah.
Such a good way to end.
Right.
On the beginning. We're ending where it started.
Exactly. Ending where it started. That was a bar. Yeah, so Barcelona was a mission trip we went to summer 2023. So before we even talk about the mission trip, though, we knew, I don't know, did you know me? I feel like I might even like assume that. I knew of you.
I knew of you. And
yeah,
this is the funny part. So I don't know how long ago it was, but there was a couple years ago where our youth pastor, Viet, shout out, our youth pastor, he's gonna be so,
shout out,
had an internship program.
Yeah.
Yes. And he asked me to be a part of it. I think I needed hours too, so it was like, and you know, I grew up going to our church, so I was totally down. And you were also there one day.
I was young.
Oh, no, you were so young.
I was like about 9th grade.
That's so young. That's crazy.
Because it was right when I came back from Massachusetts. I lived in Cape Cod 7th and 8th grade, and then came back 9th grade. Did that summer internship.
Wow. So that was a long time ago. So and what's interesting is I was no longer in youth. I think I was in college, and it was over summer at that point.
Right.
Maybe like really early on. But I felt kind of awkward because I was like, oh, I'm not a youth student and I'm doing a youth internship. Like, I bet people are going to be like, who is she?
Yeah.
And there was also a big like like just a big shift because I grew up going to youth group, and then it's like I go to college and I come back and I don't know anybody, nobody knows me. And youth group was like a home for me for a while.
Right.
And so that was really different. And then I saw you and Viet had introduced us, and I was like, oh my gosh, she hates me. Oh my gosh, I am so weird. I'm this old girl. I'm this old lady working with these young kids, and they're probably like, who even are you? Do you even go here?
Do you even go
here?
And
we never spoke. We did not, because both of us
because
were
also, yeah, but I think it's just, like, obviously, your thoughts weren't true at all, but I think also there was just that hindrance was different on our side, so you were probably like, oh, I'm a weirdo. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's, like, actually so cool. Like, we have, like, this whole, like, grown woman here. But no, not grown woman.
So later...
Oh, yes. So we had that just kind of, like, initial...
I don't remember seeing you again after that.
Yeah.
I think I knew of you.
Off the face of the planet, yeah.
But, like, we didn't have any kind of... Because there is
we didn't talk... Difference. I don't think we took literally that entire time.
I don't think
that
we did.
Whole internship. And then...
I think we awkwardly were like,
hi, bye.
I'm Mia, and then left. Who would have known years later we had a podcast together?
That's crazy.
God is so good.
That's actually insane. I would have, like, if I told Mia that day when I met you, like,
you're going to have a podcast with her. So then years later, we got put on the same mission trip.
Yes. And it's still, so we even had, like, of course, like, the fundraisers and, like, the team meetings leading up to it. Yes. But there was still, we didn't still really interact.
That. Like, I knew more of you, and I remember thinking, wow, like, she is so cool and so pretty, and she's so cool. But, like, she has her own friends that are well-established. And for me, besides the fact that my husband was going with me, and I knew Viet and Josh, I didn't know any of the youth that were going on that trip.
Right.
I knew of Monet, and I knew of you, and Alyssa.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
And again, that was more like I knew of them. I knew their names. I had no connections or friendships with any of the other youth on this trip. And I'm at an awkward part where, like, when I'm going on these trips, I'm not a leader, but I'm not a youth either, because I am a full-blown adult, but I'm not a leader on the trip.
Right.
So it's like I'm banded up with the other youth, but I don't actually go to youth, and I don't know any of them.
Right.
But I knew of you.
Exactly. So, yeah, we had that just kind of, again, small talk, like, hey, bye, sort of, you know, can't wait for Barcelona, you know, the usual. But then it's kind of funny, though, because, again, even though we're traveling across the world to Barcelona, it still didn't, like, click immediately.
No, not right away, because
it didn't. I remember even, like, at the airport, I was like, I'm going to the bathroom, guys, and you're the only one that went to me. I was like, okay, this is fun.
This is so awkward.
This is so awkward fun. I don't even remember. I think I was probably talking way too much about bathroom things, because I was like, I gotta make her love me. We're gonna spend 10 days together, so if she doesn't like me, I'm dying.
When we got to Barcelona, all of the girls were staying in one, like, apartment dorm style kind of thing, and we were not placed in the same room at first.
No. I was like, oh, my chances of getting close to her, gone.
But there were a couple of mornings, I think after, like, the second day, our room switched. But, like, the first 2 mornings, they were the most awkward bathroom morning interactions.
Bathroom moments in Barcelona are my favorite.
We would wake up, and we were, like, there was, like, a dual sink, and so we're both at one sink. So early in the
not saying a word.
So jet lagged, looking at each other with the biggest RBF, not saying a word. I think I one time was like, good morning, and you were like, didn't even talk. And just like washing our face and doing our skincare routine, and I'm literally sitting here like, this is the most awkward interaction I've ever had in my life, and she definitely hates me when she's not talking to me.
I was dead. Like, honestly, I remember those moments, but I don't very much. Like, it was a blur. Like, until I had food in my system and we were, like, wet and had a devotional, like, I was not alive.
We had 4 espressos and 6 chocolate croissants.
Yeah, literally. Like, I was not awake. So I remember those, but I was like,
and
oh
then,
my gosh.
So because of those long late night conversations that we were talking about, like basically at the end of the day and these mission trips that we were doing, we would have like a debrief as a group. And then some people would leave and go to bed like after the debrief, but some of us would
us wanting to talk as we
wanted to
obviously having a podcast.
And like just kind of laughing at the harder parts of the trip, like connecting, because we were having this conversation before the podcast started. The growth and friendships that you get, the connections that you make on those mission trips when you're truly like suffering together as a group. Yeah. Trauma bonding. It is trauma bonding, but it is so much fun. And when you are together as a group like that, you know that once the mission trip is over, you're never going to get that again. Yeah. It's not going to be the same group of people. Yeah. In the same space where you are, you know, all hanging out and talking and growing together. Yeah. So anytime
such that genuinely like highlights, man, like of my life.
It's one of my favorite parts.
Of my life.
Entire life. Yeah. So I would never be like, I would be one of the last ones to go to bed because I loved these genuine late night conversations.
Like, we're in Barcelona for 10 days, guys. I'm staying up till...
I'm not sleeping.
I'm not sleeping.
And we did it.
Honestly, like, in those mornings, we were extra dead because at night, we were like, oh, let's make this count. I regretted it immediately.
Like 3 hours of sleep, jet lagged.
It's so
giving
true.
all of our energy to the mission during the day.
Walking the entire Barcelona city afterwards. It was
terrible shoes. Our feet were bleeding.
But you do it for the fellowship, man. You do it for the fellowship. So we were staying up super duper late, and then that's when
our roommates.
That's horrible. No, literally. So I didn't get texts in Barcelona because we're in a different country. And one of Hannah's roommate at the time, she's like, did you get my text? I was like, no, I'm so sorry. She's like, oh yeah, we want to switch rooms. You guys are staying up way too late.
Like, you guys are staying up so late, and you're waking
us up,
and you're being too loud, and we were like, okay.
So sorry.
Like, outcasted.
Literally. So we were pushed together. I was like, okay, this is fun. And then that was the beginning. That was
when it started.
That was the beginning. Because then I think, honestly, again, just like the trauma bonding. In the morning, just dying. Being like, oh, to wear today. This looks disgusting. I'm going to cry.
We were like,
I think literally that's kind of what we were like, got along with, which is horrible. We were like,
self-esteem issues.
Self-esteem issues. Like, I look disgusting. I'm going to cry.
We were like, no, you look so good.
then it would just go vice versa. I'd be like, Hannah, you look amazing today.
And I'd be like, you're such a liar. Do this thing for the Lord.
For the Lord.
And it honestly, like,
That's
from
so
that
funny.
point, like, it was done.
The rest is history.
The rest is history.
What did
so
she
then
say?
after that, which I will take credit until the day I die, I don't care what he said.
What?
When we were in Barcelona, I brought up pickleball.
You did.
And I brought up how we should all go out and play pickleball.
You did.
And all I'm saying is that that's how it started. The group has drastically changed.
Yes.
But me and you, though, are still going out there and playing pickleball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it started with us just going out one day, like
I showed you.
noon.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're the one that taught me.
Yeah.
Which I think back, I've been thinking back to that one day. It was so funny. You giving, because it was 3 of us.
Yeah.
That have never played before. Hannah had some experience. And the credit she was giving us for the most, like, literally we'd be like, oh, you're insane. Just getting it through the biggest freaking lob. If you just couldn't return it, which none of us could, because none of us knew how to play it. You were like, oh my gosh, you're insane. I was like, okay, I am. You're so right.
I do better than I am.
Okay, that's literally not true. But then go home. I was so hyped that day. And then, yeah, again, look at us now. So then
it just started to where, like, Viet started to invite people out on every, like, Tuesday, Thursday. And now it's, like, kind of an unsaid thing. Like, people just go
show
out
up Tuesday,
Thursday.
And then it's so cool because, like you were saying, we meet people that are already there. And then you just start to know their names. And it was, like, so fun. Tuesday. So, yeah, like I said earlier, it's spring break. So Tuesday was insane on the court.
So many people.
But it's just so fun. Like, you know the people there. It's like a whole pickleball community.
People are like, hey, Hannah. I'm like,
I know, hey! It's so fun. Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, it's literally a blast. So
now we're here.
Yeah,
and because
so then
of Barcelona.
Then we got pickleball.
But
we've had different things. Like, Hannah inspired me to watch all the Twilight movies. Great.
Oh we did. We had a Twilight-a-thon.
That's what I'm saying. So just little things, you know, and again.
Now we're here.
And now we're here. And now we have a podcast.
Because of pickleball, because of Barcelona.
Barcelona, man. Barcelona was a time, but I don't think I, like, emphasize enough to everyone I know. Like, that was, like, I loved that trip so much.
I loved that trip for the people.
I know.
There are parts of that trip.
You're right. That's what I was saying. It's a little, like, from the outside view, we should have all hated it, to be honest.
But that's the power of fellowship.
It's so true. It's
God
who
saved
you're there
that
with.
Trip through the relationships that we built with our team.
And how they've continued,
and we
honestly.
grew from that trip. I mean, we were in the trenches some of those days, and there were moments, I think, for every single person on the trip where we were like, are we going to make it through?
Right.
But God said, you're going to have the best memories
and stories
from that. And
it has, man.
I'm so grateful for that trip.
And we got Ireland.
We're going to Ireland in June. I have been to Ireland before on missions. I absolutely love Ireland, so I'm even more excited. But Mia didn't go the first time, and now she is.
Yeah.
And it's going to be
we get to go again. And there's some people that did go the first one, which is going to be so fun, because it's
fun.
Like Barcelona Part 2.
Right.
Well, I mean, hopefully not exactly
Barcelona.
Actually,
some parts of Barcelona.
Reverse. But, and then there's so many new people, though, that are coming.
It's going to be so good.
And new relationships, new friendships are going to be built. And
it's so good.
I'm actually so excited.
And we talk about it so many times where it's like, wow, we had to travel thousands of miles to get close to someone that has been going to my church.
Yeah.
We've been going to the
We
same
literally did
church.
a whole internship together.
A whole internship. And
you had to go all the way across the world.
You're forced in that environment to get to know each other. And it shouldn't have to be that way, but I'm grateful that it worked out the way
because
it did.
Sometimes life is just so, you don't have the opportunity to connect like that. Like those 10 days, you're really like...
Or like, I don't really like introduce myself to people and put myself out there, and that trip makes you like you're going to get to know the people on your team,
right? Because
in the most vulnerable of ways. You know,
they're gonna see you at your lowest. Yeah,
they're seeing you at your
amount
lowest.
of people that I'm on my like in that little closet with the water, tears in my eyes. I'm literally like fighting demons. I'm trying to eat my Velveeta sandwich crackers, like literally trying to make it. Like that's a low freaking point for Mia Harper, and
we all were breaking down.
I still got friends from that, so that's the Lord. Let me tell you, no normal person eating the 50th burger. Like no normal person would be like see us in that state and be like, oh yeah, let's be friends for life. But by the power of the Lord and fellowship, and
here we are.
Amazing people in general. Because again,
so good. And
you're amazing. Yeah.
Caught Against the Current.
against the current.
1. Wow. We did it.
We did it. That was so exciting.
It was so good. Oh my goodness.
Follow us on Instagram.
Follow us on Instagram against...
And pay for both of our island trips.
Yeah. Pay for our trips. Support us. We're going to have a good
so that we can make another... Just make you more podcast episodes about Ireland. If you financially help.
What is our Instagram name? Against Pod?
Against Current Pod.
Against Current Pod on Instagram.
Hannah's going to follow us back right now.
I'm going to follow us right now, and we're going to take a picture. Thank you so much for listening.
Yeah.
Whoever's out there listening to this.
Whoever's out there.
We appreciate you so much.
So much fun stuff planned.
Against the current time to come. But I think this was a successful first episode.
I agree.
All right. We're signing off.
Signing off.